Am I audible now, guys? Can you all hear me properly? Yes? Am I audible now, guys? Clear. Yes. So let's start. So welcome to Let's Crack UPSC CSE English. Today we are going to see one of the most important concept. Fine. So in this concept, see this concept related to Prime Minister, many do not actually study. You know, we study about President, we study about we study about Vice President, we study about Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, but we don't actually concentrate on Prime Minister. But it's very important to know what are the functions, powers, and responsibilities of Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers. So we cannot study Prime Minister separately. Obviously, we will be studying Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers together. Fine? Yes. So this, I would like to thank India's largest learning platform, Unacademy, because they have given me this opportunity of interacting with you people daily. And based on this only, I'm able to, share many information with you. And according to anthropology, I will start my anthropology class very soon in a week. Okay. Within a week, I'm going to start my anthropology classes in the Unacademy optional channel. Okay, we have UPSC CSE optional channel. In that, we will be starting our anthropology optional very soon, maximum a week. Okay, I will take maximum of a week and we will start with interesting topics from anthropology. Fine. So going into this concept, so I would like to introduce about me first. So I'm an engineer basically. So, electronics and communication background, and I have 4 years of teaching experience in terms of civil services and TNPSC. And I have mentored more than 100 students. Today alone in my special class, you know how many students were there? 600 students were there in one single session. Fine. So I'm very happy that I'm mentoring many students all over India, and I feel very happy for that. And I'm an anthropology faculty, you know that very well, because our anthropology optional class is going to be live in a week. And then I have a teaching experience in NEET also, so I'm comfortable with biology and physics too. So this is my Telegram channel's link. So you can use that Telegram channel's link. It's an open channel where you will be getting information regarding my classes, and also more information we will get there. And this is my Unacademy platform's profile link. You can follow me over there, where you can actually message me to get informations, and you will know about what are all the classes, special classes especially we have, all the courses we have, you can be seeing there. Next, so what you will get from the subscription actually, so you get a daily live class. Okay, so everything is live, not recorded. That's the first best thing. What is the good thing about live? Like, you can ask question and I will definitely help you over there. That's a very good thing. And then live test and quizzes are also live, and which is very helpful because you know what mistake you're doing then and there. So all the classes or special classes are MCQ of classes. Okay, and we have a structured course and unlimited access to all the classes, live or recorded. Now the live classes are also getting recorded, so you can watch n number of times. And then you can download this app both in the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. So based on whatever OS we use, we can download it and stay comfortable and prepare. And we have the opportunity of interacting with 100 plus top educators also. And then the syllabus is very comprehensive in nature, and this is the subscription details. So I give you my code SUBA. So this Suba Keerthana is my name, and this code, if you use, you get a 10% of offer. And then So this is about iconic. I tell every people, see, if you are doing UPSC for the first time, this is your first time, you're planning to give your attempt in 2021 or 2022, better go for iconic. I'm telling you guys why. As soon as you clear the exam, how early you clear the exam, you will get, higher positions when you retire. You have more service duration, so it is very good for you to reach higher positions. Okay, we do have attempts, but that doesn't mean we should take many attempts. But if you have a proper input, we also will give you input. When you also revert back that input, you will clear it in one attempt or maximum of two attempts. So that for that, iconic will be really helpful because you have a personal coach here. So you have a personal coach, daily means answer writing session, study planner, and personalized feedback. So this is all included in this fee structure itself. And along with my code, you get a 10% of discount. You also have a no cost EMI, and above all these things, you're sitting comfortably in your place, where you are with your family, where you are comfortable with a good food and good health, you can prepare properly. So I think iconic will be best for people who are, giving your attempt first time or all these things. And then this is about plus. In plus also you have live classes, test series. You're doing your, second attempt, third attempt. I just need a revision, refreshing of the concept. You can go for plus because many classes are very helpful over there. For both plus and iconic, you can use my code SUBA Suba. Okay, fine. So going into this is the special class, guys. Just see 597. This is one of my special class. You can see most of my special class is a polity special class. Okay, so in this question we were discussing, it was very helpful and very good actually. Okay, you should come to my special classes, which is free. It is free. Okay, the special classes are free. Fine. Coming to the concept, prime minister and council, or prime minister and council of ministers. Fine. So coming to this, prime minister is heading the government, yes, but he's not, the ministers are not subordinate to prime minister. That's not right. Prime minister is first among the equal. Prime minister is equal to all the council of minister, but he is just the first person. That's the only difference. He acts like a bridge between the president and the council of ministers, cabinet especially. So that is what is prime minister. If you all think that prime minister is a, higher person compared to all the council of minister, that is not right. Okay, yes, yes, good evening, good evening. Okay, so keep that in mind. In this statement, see, he is the head of the government. Keep that in mind. See, president is the head of the state, and prime minister is the head of the government. Okay, or the real executive in the Indian system. So president is the nominal executive, prime minister is the real executive, and he is the head of the government, and president is the head of the state. So why is this happening is because our constitution is very keen on one thing. It avoids the concentration of power. It is having a principle of division of power. In that situation, if president is actually the commander in chief of all the three forces, so in that situation, if president is given all the power, obviously in some time it might lead to monarchy. So to avoid that, to avoid the to avoid this kind of problematic ruling in the country, the constitution was very sure about dividing the power, such that the real head of the government is the prime minister, but the nominal head is the president. Okay, any agreements, everything is signed in the name of president only. He is so much respected. He is the first citizen of the nation, but he is not having much power. Okay, the power is actually vested in the parliament only. Okay, parliament is a collective responsibility. President appoints the prime minister. However, no system of appointment is given in the constitution. Very, very important, because if there is any question in the UPSC examination that the process for the appointment of prime minister is mentioned in the constitution, wrong. There is no proper there is no proper method of appointing a prime minister that has been mentioned in the constitution. It's by convention. Convention means by culture, or by following, every time we follow a method, and that becomes a convention. So, according to parliamentary democracy, the leader of the largest party of parliament becomes the prime minister. Okay, so this is how usually it happens. So, president appoints the prime minister. So that is a rule. But the president will, by convention, it's not by rule, by convention, he appoints the leader of the largest party. Okay, even though it's a coalition government, the largest party in that coalition government or the powerful party in that coalition government will be having the upper hand, and the leader of that particular party only will become the prime minister. Okay, it is not mentioned in the constitution, it is a convention. Convention is like, it's like a rule which is created by following many years. It's not written somewhere, but we accept it as one of the important rule, that is called as convention. Fine. Next, the president can exercise discretion when no party has clear majority. So I told you that largest leader of the largest party of parliament becomes the prime minister. If no party is having the majority, what will happen? The president can appoint a person and ask him to prove his majority in the house. Fine. So there are many parties. No party has proven majority. In that situation, the president can himself choose a person and he should prove majority in that particular house. Okay. So for example, everybody, if president is choosing someone, then everybody will vote for him in that particular house. Yes or no kind of thing. When he is getting majority of yes, then he will remain as the prime minister continuously. If prime minister dies and no successor is in the site, then again the same thing happens. President can appoint a suitable person at his discretion as caretaker of continuity. Okay, yes. Next, if the winning party has a candidate, then the president has no choice. Okay, so if winning party is having a candidate, the president will appoint that particular candidate. Otherwise, the largest party's leader will become the prime minister. No, you don't have any largest party, you don't have any majority rule. In that situation, the president will choose someone from that house and ask him to prove the majority. If he is proving the majority, then he will become the prime minister. Okay, so if prime minister dies, what will happen next is the president again will choose someone and he will be the prime minister. Fine, yes. To be a prime minister, a person need not be an MP. What does that mean? MP means member of parliament. How will you become a member of parliament? If you are winning an election in any of the constituency, either you should win in the direct election or you are a member of Rajya Sabha, which is indirect election through the state legislative assembly. Either of this should happen. Okay, to be a prime minister, you need not be an MP. So can anyone become a prime minister? Yes, anyone can become a prime minister. Even though she has not contested the election, they can become a prime minister. But there is one condition. What is that condition? So after that condition, I will tell you. So president is appointing a person as prime minister. Okay, this person is not an MP. Okay, he has not contested any election, he is not an MP. So in that situation, he will become prime minister when president appoints, but there is a condition. After he is coming to the position, within 6 months period of time, he should contest an election in any constituency within our country and win the election. If he is winning the election, he will continue to be the prime minister till that end of the rule. Okay, so 5 years is 5 years. If the prime minister is selected after 2 years, he will only rule for 3 years. Okay, so this is how it works. So within 6 months, he should win an election and prove that he is an MP, and then he will become the permanent prime minister. Till that, he will be temporary. For 6 months, he will be there. If he is failing to win any election in any of the constituency, then he cannot continue to be the prime minister. Okay. Though the PM occupies his post during the pleasure of president, he cannot be removed till he commands the majority in the house. What is this? So there is a statement. Prime minister present in that particular post till the pleasure of president. What does that mean? Pleasure of president means president can remove when he feels like. That is what is called as the pleasure of president. But for that also there is a condition, like if president thinks that this person is not suitable for prime minister, he cannot just remove like that. What can he do? that prime minister who's currently there should prove majority. If he is proving majority, even president thinks he should not be the prime minister, the president cannot do anything. But if the president thinks he should not be the prime minister and that particular person couldn't prove majority in that house, then he will stop being a prime minister. He should come out of his position. Fine? Yes. Next. As per Government of India allocation of business rules created by President, different departments were created to handle government business. What are those? Ministers and subject distribution was done to each ministry by the President on the advice of Prime Minister. Okay. So ministry. So the ministers and subject distribution, which minister will get which portfolio, is assigned by the president but on the advice of prime minister. Fine. Yes. Next, what are the powers of prime minister? So 3 or 4 days back, why I chose this topic, prime minister, I should tell you. Prime minister is one of the person then president we are seeing in the news, especially in this corona situation. We are meeting the prime minister in our social media, in our TV, all these things in a very large manner, very high numbers. So in that situation, it is mandatory that we know about our prime minister. So one of my student, he asked, one of my learner, he showed me a question and he asked me a doubt, ma'am. Prime Minister can, just now we saw Prime Minister only allots the portfolio to the ministers. But actually he does not allot it straight away. He recommends the president and president allots the portfolio. And one more statement was there that the prime minister can dismiss the ministers. Is that statement right or wrong, ma'am? For that we have the answer here. We'll see that. See, first of all, as the head of Council of Ministers, he recommends people to be appointed. First of all, he is not appointing the ministers. He is recommending the people to the president. President appoints those ministers. First point, number one. Second, he allocates and reshuffles portfolios among them. He can ask the minister to resign. He can ask the minister to resign or tell the president to dismiss him. Prime minister does not have power to dismiss anyone. The prime minister will either ask that minister to resign by himself. See, you have done this mistake, you better resign. Okay, you could have watched in movies. See, in terms of ministers and all, the head will call, the prime minister or chief minister will call, and they will ask, what, will you resign or should I take some step? These kind of things you will be seeing. So the chief minister or prime minister cannot directly dismiss a minister. They will only recommend to president or governor respectively. Only president or governor can dismiss the minister. Fine, keep this point in mind, guys. He allocates the portfolio, he shuffles the portfolio. That also he will recommend the president and president will do that. President has the power to do it. Okay, and he will ask the ministers to resign, that he has the power of, but he cannot dismiss any ministers. Fine, next point. He supervises all activities of ministers. His resignation or death leads to the dissolution of Council of Ministers. Fine. So there is a Council of Ministers. We'll see what is a Council of Ministers. So there is Prime Minister as the head. So if Prime Minister resigns, the Council of Ministers entirely dissolves. This is what we call it as collective responsibility. So any minister, if any minister is passed no confidence motion, or if Prime Minister resigns, or Prime Minister is dead, the Council of Ministers gets dissolved. Okay, and he communicates to the president all matters related to the administration of union and proposed legislations. The center, union here is nothing but the central government. Okay, so he communicates, he acts like a communicating bridge between the Council of Ministers and the president. Most important point. He he furnishes information required by the president relating to administration of union or proposed legislation. 2 points I told you. First of all, the prime minister is himself having a duty of communicating all the matters to the president. So any decision taken, anything which is happening, the prime minister should report or communicate to the president. On the other hand, if president himself is asking some question, the president himself is asking some information, the prime minister should give that information to the president. related to this administration of union or proposed legislation. Okay, he submits to the consideration of Council of Ministers any matter on which decision has been taken by an individual minister, but the Council of Ministers hasn't considered it. Okay, so if there is any minister taking a decision, okay, but the Council of Ministers has considered it, he submits, he again asks the Council of Ministers to consider it. Okay, so I am a minister. So we are all, let's take, whoever is attending this class is whoever is attending this class is the Council of Minister. So there is one Prime Minister. So I'm taking a decision which you are all not accepting. The Prime Minister has the power to ask you people to reconsider. Simple. Okay. So this is what is the last point. Who has more political power? President or Prime Minister? Okay. In terms of political power, Prime Minister has more power. Okay, because the government is, he is the head of government and he is the head of the cabinet. And one more thing is, through convention, the head of or the leader of the majority party, the leader of the majority party only will be becoming the prime minister. So even though according to constitution he is not treated special, but according to his political party he definitely will be treated special and he will have more power. Even though we know that the cabinet decision is final, he will definitely have an influence of cabinet in most of the situations. So in that point of view, if there is any question in UPSC, who will have more political power, president or prime minister? Obviously, prime minister will have the more political power because by convention he is the leader of the majority party. So in Lok Sabha, in parliament, the majority party only rules, which means the head of the majority party will have more power. Okay, next. He is the leader of lower house. Lower house is nothing but the Lok Sabha. Okay, so in one class we compared Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So in that we would have seen many things like the Lok Sabha, since it is directly elected by people, is vested with more power compared to Rajya Sabha in many situations. So he can advise president to summon or prorogue the house session. So the prime minister is the leader. Okay, so you can ask speaker, ma'am, speaker is the head of that house. Who is the leader of that house? Is prime minister, because he is the leader of the majority party. He can advise the president to summon, to call for a session or to end the session of that particular house. He can advise dissolution of Lok Sabha to the president any time. If he is advising the president to dissolve Lok Sabha, that will be followed. Okay, and he announces government policies on the floor of the house. Who announces the government policy? If there is any question, which of the following announces the government policies in the floor of the house? It can be any house. It can be Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Then it is actually Prime Minister. See, very important point, guys. Powers of Prime Minister is very important. That too, in this situation of COVID-19, we are, having Prime Minister in many current affairs. So there is a possibility of questions coming from the powers and responsibility of Prime Minister. Okay, next. He is advisor of presidents regarding to appointments to various regulators and constitutional bodies. Yes. So we know very well the president appoints the chairman of all the constitutional bodies. President have appointment powers. He appoints the head of union territories, all these things. Okay. Prorogue is like postpone the session. Fine. Yes. Summon means call the session. Prorogue is like postpone the session or end the session. All these things. Yes. So in these appointments, though the president appoints, he should listen to the advice of prime minister. So it means the person who is appointed is actually not the discretion of president alone. It is based on the advice of prime minister. And he heads the National Development Council. See, this very important. He heads the National Development Council, National Integration Council, Interstate Council, Niti Aayog, National Water Resource Council, etc. Okay, yes. Council of Ministers. So the Prime Minister plus Council of Ministers are the real executives. Okay. So what does Council of Minister means? So they aid and advise the President in the excess of his function, but such advice is binding on the President. Okay. So if the president is given advice by the council of minister, that president should definitely listen to. If he is not listening to that advice, that means he is not abiding by the constitution. Okay, yes. Am I audible now, guys? Clearly? Can you all hear me? Am I audible now, guys? Yes. Clearly? Let's continue. Fine. So this is the thing. So the president should definitely listen. The president should definitely listen to this, advice of the council of ministers. Okay. So it is binding, and if he is not following the advice of council of minister, then it is considered as, then it is considered as the, not following the constitution. Fine. Next, no court shall inquire. So if the council of minister is giving an advice to the president, okay, so if president is not follow in any advice is given to the president by the council of minister, and that advice cannot be questioned in any court, that advice does not come under judicial review. What does that mean? It does not come under the question in any court. It is not coming under the concept of judicial review. Constitution, however, does not grant any immunity either for personal or official acts. Hence, ministers can be treated like ordinary citizens. Okay, so just we saw one thing, president should follow the advice, but that doesn't mean constitution gives any grant of immunity either for personal or official acts. So during right to equality before law, we saw one statement, which means the prime minister, the president and the governor is immune against criminal laws. Okay, no criminal proceedings can be done against the president or governor, but the council of ministers is not having any such immunity. The constitution does not grant any immunity either for the personal or official acts. So the ministers are to be treated like ordinary citizens only. They should follow all the rules and regulations. It can be traffic rules and regulations, or they should follow all the rules and regulations. They do not have any immunity. Okay, next. The total strength of Prime Minister plus Council of Ministers shall not exceed 15% of the strength of Lok Sabha. So according to 91st Amendment Act, it's 15% of the strength of Lok Sabha. Okay, so in that year, what is the strength of Lok Sabha? So that 15%, not more than, maximum of 15% should be there. This number is very, very important, guys. Keep it in mind. The person who has been disqualified on grounds of defection shall also be disqualified to be appointed as Prime Minister. Fine, if Prime Minister itself is disqualified under grounds of defection, or Schedule 10. Schedule 10 of Indian Constitution deals with this anti-defection law. So if Prime Minister, if there is any person who has been disqualified under the grounds of defection, he also loses his position as Prime Minister. He loses his position of MP, and he also loses his position as Prime Minister. That is also in the 91st Amendment Act. Very important, these two things. Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to Lok Sabha. A minister who isn't an MP for 6 consecutive months shall cease to be the minister. That is what I told you. So A minister, so anyone can be appointed as a minister the same way like prime minister. Okay, so prime minister or president can appoint anyone as a minister. So prime minister is advising the president, appoint this person as a minister. The president can appoint that person as a minister and he have all the powers of ministers. And one time one of my learner asked me, ma'am, if a person has not won any election but he is becoming a prime minister or minister, so you told you that within 6 months of time he should win an election in any of the constituency. So if he is not winning an election in any of the constituency within that 6 months, he is, presently is not in any, he has not won in any constituency, but still he is being the prime minister or minister. In that situation, if the in that situation, if the person is having all the powers of a prime minister and a minister who has won the election, or he will not have that much power. Actually, irrespective of he winning the election or not, within that 6 months period of time, he will have the power of a minister, he will have the power of a prime minister. Fine. So a minister can take part in proceedings of both the house as he is member of government, but can only vote in one house of which he is a member. So MP from a minister from Lok Sabha can take part in Rajya Sabha's meeting also, but he cannot vote over there. He can only vote in Lok Sabha. Fine. So that is also very important point. Keep that in mind. Okay. Next. See, Article 74, someone has asked me about Article 74. Article 74 is like there will be a Prime Minister with Council of Minister who will advise the President. Okay, that is the Article 74. Is there any doubt in this? Yes? Cool, right? Okay. Collective responsibility. What is collective responsibility? This means the entire Council of Minister is a team. Okay, and they sing together or swim together. So what does that mean? Okay, so there is a prime minister, and let's take there are 30 council of ministers. So there is one minister in this. So there is one minister. Against this minister, no confidence motion has been passed. So what does that mean? The entire council of ministers along with the prime minister will get dissolved. Do you get it? The entire council of minister, if they are passing no confidence motion against one minister also, the prime minister along with the entire council of minister will get dissolved. That is what we call it as collective responsibility, which means either they swim together or sing together. That means, what does that mean? Even if one person is committing a mistake, if one person is not following constitution, or if one person is losing confidence of the houses, the entire council of minister will get dissolved. Okay, so that is what we call it as collective responsibility. So if Lok Sabha passes no confidence motion against the council of minister, then all have to resign. So three categories of minister. I tell you council of ministers, yes. What does this contain? There are three categories. First is cabinet minister. So they see, this is the hierarchy. We have cabinet minister, deputy minister. So this is the hierarchy. Okay, so we'll see this. First is, so we have cabinet minister, and then we have minister of state, and then we have deputy minister. Okay, so this is the hierarchy. So cabinet minister is in a higher position than the ministry of state, and minister of state is higher position than the deputy minister. Deputy minister is the final point in the council of minister, the three types of minister. So first, cabinet minister, they attend the cabinet meeting and play an important role in the central government, because the cabinet's decision is having more power in many aspects. The ministers, cabinet meetings, cabinet ministers are the ministers whom the prime minister chooses. So it's a small group, it's usually very small group, whom the Prime Minister is having always with him or her, and they take a decision together. Next, Minister of State, they can be independent in charge of department. Okay, they come under different departments that aren't attached to cabinet ministers. So, for example, we have 5 cabinet ministers. So that 5 cabinet ministers are having portfolio like railways, and then defense, finance. Okay, and then we have agriculture and anything else, health. Let's take health. So these 5 are taken by the cabinet ministers. It's not compulsory like only these should be taken by cabinet minister. Any person can, any minister can, any cabinet minister can take anything. Apart from this, what are the portfolios available? The Minister of State will be in charge of. They aren't attached to cabinet ministers, are in charge of specific department, part of ministry or specific work in ministry which is headed by a cabinet minister. Simply, if there is any portfolio linked with cabinet minister, apart from that, whatever is there, the Minister of State will take. Next, we have deputy minister. They are attached to cabinet ministers or Minister of State and assist them in work. They're either attached to a cabinet minister or to a Minister of State and they assist them in work. The last 2 categories do not form the part of cabinet meetings and cabinet isn't mentioned. See this, guys. Cabinet isn't mentioned in the original text of Indian Constitution. Only in the 44th Amendment Act it was inserted in Article 352. So in original Constitution, which came into force in January 26, 1950, we did not have this term cabinet. Okay, so cabinet was mentioned only in the 44th Amendment Act of 1978, and only in Article 352 it was inserted. Okay, yes. What is this Article 352? Can anyone tell me what is this Article 352? National emergency. So national emergency according to 44th Amendment Act can be proclaimed by the President only if in written was given by the cabinet to the President. There only they inserted this term cabinet. See how it is. Cabinet is by convention we had, but the term cabinet was, cabinet was mentioned in the Constitution only in Article 352. That is also related to national emergency under 44th Amendment Act of 1978, which means the President can proclaim national emergency only if he is receiving in writing from the cabinet. Initially, before that, it was the Prime Minister can, instruct the President or advise the President to proclaim national emergency, and the President can proclaim national emergency. But it was seen to be like misused by Prime Minister in many situations. So many things have been changed to maintain the genuinity of the national emergency. Fine. Next. Cabinet ministers are also part of cabinet committees which are created to sort out issue or make policy recommendations to the cabinet. Okay, fine. Next, collective responsibility and individual responsibility. What do you mean by collective responsibility and individual responsibility? The collective responsibility has 2 meanings. What are those? The first, that all members of the governments are unanimous in support of its policies and exhibit the unanimity on policy public occasions. Okay, the class started at 6 p.m. Shubham. Yes. The collective responsibility has 2 meanings. The first, that all members of the government are unanimous in support of its policies and exhibit that unanimity on public occasions. Although, while formulating the policies, they might have difference in in cabinet meeting, they will be supporting that policy, they'll be opposing the policy, everything. But once the decision is taken, they should be unanimous. So that is the first meaning of collective responsibility. Do you understand? So Prime Minister with cabinet ministers, they only take decisions related to the government policy. And the collective decision they have taken is the final. So once the decision is taken, when they come to the public, even though they had different opinion inside the cabinet meetings, they should support that policy. They should stand unanimously, either they support or reject. Okay, so that is what is something called as this one meaning of collective responsibility. The unanimity, they should have unanimity or uniformity. Okay, uniformity in expression. On the other term, the ministers who had an opportunity to speak for or against the policies in cabinets are there personally and morally responsible for their success and failure. So the ministers have only taken the decision. Okay, even though they have opposed it or supported it, Personally and morally, they are responsible for the success or failure of that policy. So the collective responsibility of cabinet means two things. Number one, they should be always unanimous when they come to the public. Number two, they should always take responsibility whether they opposed it or supported it. Personally, they are only responsible. Morally, they are only responsible for the success or failure of that particular policy. Fine. Next, the principle of individual responsibility to the head of state. So what does individual responsibility means? Collective responsibility we have seen in many places. See, according to constitution also, the no confidence motion makes the council of minister collectively responsible to the legislature. Okay, and ministers, cabinet ministers also have collective responsibility. We saw the two different meanings of collective responsibility. Now, the principle of individual responsibility is mentioned in the Constitution under Article 75, Clause 2. What is that? The ministers shall hold office during the pleasure of President, which means the President will only decide if that particular minister will be in that position or not, which means everybody is individually responsible to the President. That is the meaning of individual responsibility. They have a collective responsibility and they are responsible to the Lok Sabha. Only Lok Sabha. Yes, because no confidence motion can be passed only in the Lok Sabha. That is why I told you they are responsible to Lok Sabha. They are individually responsible to the President. Okay, yes. The result is that though the ministers are collectively responsible to legislature, they shall be individually responsible to the executive head and shall be liable to dismissal even when they may have the confidence of legislature. See one thing, prime minister cannot be dismissed if he is having the majority, but ministers can be dismissed even though they have the majority. I am repeating, prime minister is also within the pleasure of president. Okay, he can remain in that position and with the pleasure of president. But if president is deciding that okay, this person should not be the prime minister, he cannot just remove him. Only if there is less majority, only if he is not having the confidence of that floor, he can remove the prime minister. But for the other minister, that is not the case. If president decides that the person is not eligible to be a minister, the president can remove that minister even though he has the confidence of legislature, even though he proves majority in that particular Lok Sabha. Fine. This point is very important because even though prime minister is first among equal, he is having that particular immunity in terms of pleasure of president. Okay. Next. Usually prime minister exercises this power by asking an undesirable colleague to resign, which the latter readily complies with in order to avoid odium of a dismissal. Okay, so when someone is coming and dismissing you, it's a form of inconvenience, or it's a form of shame. But if that person is resigning readily, it's somewhat dignified form. Okay, because when a president is dismissing some person, everybody will know the reason. So instead, prime minister will go on advice, whether you resign. So what happened? The person will resign, the minister will resign. Okay, so either it is done according to the advice of prime minister, or it is done according to the order of president. When prime minister does that, he asks the person to resign. If president does that, the president can dismiss the minister. Okay, fine. The English principle of legal responsibility has not been adopted in our constitution. What is that? See, if an act of president according to the rules made by him authenticated by a secretary to the government, what does that mean? So in our Indian constitution, how does it take place? So there will be a bill. There will be a bill initiated. It can be private bill or government bill. Private bill is by a non-minister MP. Government bill is by a minister. So then it goes initiated in house number 1. So first reading, second reading, third reading. Okay, third reading, second reading, third reading, and then finally goes to the next house. Next house. So from that it again goes for this first reading, second reading, third reading, and from here it goes to the president. And when president gives his assent, the bill becomes an act. The bill becomes an act. Cool. This is how it works. But in England, there is something called as legal responsibility, which means after it becoming the act, the secretary should sign it again, which means he is legally responsible for that policy. He is legally responsible for that act. Okay. So in England, the Crown cannot do any public act without the counter signature of minister who is liable in court of law if the act done violates the law of land. So if there is any act, that act the president has given his assent, which means it is it is becoming an act. Then later what happens? There will be a judicial review. The Supreme Court will see that, okay, if it is following the rule of land constitution, if it is constitutionally valid, it will be continuing its existence. If not, under judicial review, the Supreme Court has the power to strike it down. But in terms of England, so what happens? The secretary will sign. Secretary is nothing but the one who is responsible for that particular act will sign it, which means he can be questioned in court if that particular act which has been passed by the crown, okay, is taken to the court. He is answerable to that particular act or policy, which means he is not just collectively responsible or individually responsible, he is also legally responsible to a particular act which he is passing. But in India, we don't have that legal responsibility. Okay, so that is what is important. In India, the ministers do not have this legal responsibility. Okay, give rise to cause of an action in favor of an individual also. So if there is any policy which is favor of an individual also, that can be questioned in the court. But we don't have that provision. It is the suo motu of Supreme Court under judicial review can review any parliamentary act and strike it down if it is constitutionally invalid. Okay, yes. Our constitution does not expressly say that the president can only act through ministers, leaves it to the president to make rules as how his orders etc. are to be authenticated. On the other hand, provides that the courts will not be entitled to enquire what advice was tendered by the ministers to the executive head. Okay. So yes, Mr. Jyoti Bhaskar, don't worry, I will tell you the legal responsibility. So what does legal responsibility means? So there is a bill which two houses have ratified and the president is signing it. So when the president is giving his assent, it becomes an act. In India, after it becomes an act, the Supreme Court suo motu reviews that act, and if it sees under judicial review, Article 13, see if it is following the constitution, it is not violating the constitution. If it is not violating the constitution, the act continues to exist. If it is violating the constitution, the Supreme Court has power to strike that act down, and it will not have any power. This is how in our country it works, which means that the minister who is passing it will not be questioned in the court. Simply the act will be reviewed by the Supreme Court and it will be cancelled or it will be continued to exist. But in England, an act which is signed by the crown is nothing but it can be a king or queen, presently queen. So if the queen is signing that act, then along with that, the minister who is responsible, there they call it as secretary, okay, the secretary who is responsible should countersign, he should also sign that act, which means that if that particular act is found to violate the rule of that particular land or it is favoring an individual person, then that person is responsible and he can be taken to court. He will face the court. He will face the law. This is the legal responsibility. In our country, we have collective responsibility, we have individual responsibility to the president, but we don't have the legal responsibility. But in England, they have this legal responsibility concept. Okay, you can use this as a way forward in mains. In English, we have legal responsibility. So if we bring legal responsibility also, it might increase the responsibility of the ministers. So as a way forward, you can write it in the answer. Okay, with a proper, because it's an authenticated source, you can actually write it in the way forward. Okay, so there is any statement like critically analyze the responsibilities of Council of Ministers. You will criticize their responsibilities and then you will analyze and criticize the responsibilities. Finally, in way forward, you can write it. Okay. See, in our constitution, there is nothing related to the president, how the president should follow the advice. It is not given. It is given that the president should decide what to do, and it is also given that the court cannot question the advice. We know that very well. The act, parliamentary act, and all these things can be coming under judicial review. But whatever is spoken in the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, or whatever advice given to the president, will not come under the concept of judicial review. The court cannot question it, or we cannot go to the court questioning the advice given to the president by the prime minister and the council of ministers. Okay, yes. Prime Minister is the keystone of cabinet arc. Why? In England, Prime Minister is the keystone of cabinet arc. Also, in our Article 74 of Class 1, Constitution expresses that the states that Prime Minister shall be the head of the Council of Ministers. There shall be a Council of Ministers with Prime Minister as head, and they can aid and advise the President. Okay, that is what is there. So, even in the Constitution, it has mentioned that he is the head of the Council of Ministers, which means he is the keystone of the cabinet arch. The other minister cannot function when Prime Minister dies or resigns. If these two things happen, the entire Council of Ministers will get dissolved. It can be either resignation or the Prime Minister's death. Okay, so what will happen if Prime Minister is dying? A new person will come as a Prime Minister, and a new Council of Ministers will be only formed. The same Council of Ministers will not be there. And again, if Prime Minister resigns, again the entire Council of Ministers will get dissolved. Okay, yes. In theory, all ministers or members of cabinet have equal position, all being at, see, some person have asked me who is having more political power. You have this answer. In theory, that is according to constitution, all ministers or member of cabinet ministers have equal position, all being the advisors of crown and all being responsible to parliament in the same manner. Okay, but the prime minister has a preeminence by convention and usage. Okay, according to constitution, the prime minister is equal, the cabinet ministers and council of ministers are equal, but by convention we know that very well he is the head of the majority party, which means obviously he is the powerful person. See, in Lok Sabha, who is the powerful person? In Lok Sabha, who is the powerful person? The one who can prove majority is the powerful person. So obviously the leader of the majority party can anytime prove the majority. So it seems that by convention the prime minister is more powerful. Even though any particular minister has tendered any advice to the president without placing it before the council of ministers, the president has the power to refer the matter to be considered by the council of ministers. If an individual minister is going and advising the president, okay, so the president can take it to the council of minister and say that okay, this person has given me advice and he has not presented it to the council of ministers, so you just reconsider it and tell me whether I should follow it or not. That also is possible. Okay, the unity of cabinet system thus be enforced in India through the provisions of the written constitution. Okay, in our constitution it is written related to this cabinet system. Okay, yes. The president in relation to the council of ministers. What is the relation of president to the council of ministers? In a parliamentary form of government, the tenure of the office of the virtual executive is dependent on the will of legislature. Virtual executive is nothing but nominal executive. Who is nominal executive? The president. Okay. Even though the president only appoints them, even though the president has the power to dismiss them, he is also living. I mean, he is also existing in the position according to the will of legislature only. In a presidential government, the tenure of office of executive is independent of the will of legislature. What does that mean? Anytime, um, anytime if the legislature decides, they can impeach the president. Okay, obviously it's not that easy. Majority, special majority is needed, but still they can actually, impeach the president. But in America or the presidential form of government, they don't have this kind of thing. Since the president is a real executive and real head, he is elected by the people itself, and he is having a fixed term. Impeachment is not that easy. We just saw the impeachment of they tried the impeachment of the president, but it became invalid. But in India, the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have the power to impeach the president. Okay, yes, he is under parliamentary system represented by England. On the other hand, the head of executive is a mere titular head, and the virtual executive power is wielded by the cabinet, a body form of members of legislature and responsible to the popular house. So the so-called cabinet of American president is responsible to himself and not to the Congress. But in India, the Council of Ministers is responsible to the Parliament. Okay, so this is making the Parliament more powerful. It can even impeach the president. It can impeach the Council of Ministers also. Okay, so the reason why the framer, you should know why this reason has taken place, why this type of complex structure is there, why there is no one having that much power in the Indian constitution, we should know. See, the reason why the framers of constitution did not go to the presidential form of government is the election of president of the republic by an electoral college formed of members of legislatures, not only of union and state, has explained this. What? First of all, um, first of all, if the president is directly elected by the people, he will become more powerful. Number one, and second statement is like if the power is vested in a single person, what will happen? It will lead monarchy. Might sometime it will lead to military rule also. Okay, so that was to be avoided, and that is the reason the president was also made made bound to the will of the parliament. Okay, in combining stability with responsibility, we just saw this. We saw that in presidential form of government and parliamentary form of government. In one class where we had this discussion where presidential form of government versus cabinet form of government. In that there was a statement like the constitution framers chose the responsibility compared to the stability. What does that mean? The parliamentary form of government is very less stable. That is, any time when we pass no confidence motion, the legislature and the executive will get dissolved. So what happened? There were so many problems every time we should conduct election, all these things. So someone asked me, ma'am, when there is a stability, it is more better. Why we chose responsibility? Actually, stability is there, yes, but the stability will give more immunity to the people, which will lead to losing of responsibility, and so that they won't be responsible to people, and they will start looking at individual perspective alone. But if we are responsible to the Lok Sabha is nothing but the representatives of people. So, which means they are indirectly responsible to the people only. Okay, in our country, ultimately, the executive is responsible to the people. So, when they are responsible to the people, what happens is that the more proper form of government will exist. The more proper form of useful policy will come into play. That is the reason, we chose responsibility in the place of stability. You can just see daily assessment of responsibility to the theory of periodic assessment upon which the American system is found. We have this daily responsibility. Okay, every time person, the minister is responsible to the legislature and he should answer the question of legislature. Fine? Yes. The cabinet or parliamentary system of government of India has already had some experience. That is why we chose the parliamentary system and not the presidential system. Fine. So thank you so much. Today's class was very good. We learned about Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers, especially their functions and powers. Fine. Very important class, guys. Just go through this again and make use of this, because this year every time we get question from president, every time we get question from government, but this time we might get question from the president, prime minister also. Fine. See, and one more thing, guys, follow me through my telegram channel, follow me through my profile, because the special classes are free and very much interactive. Especially we are planning on revising at least 100 question. Okay, we are planning on revising at least 100 questions in each subject before this prelims 2020. Okay, yes. So please ensure that you come to all those classes. They are free. Okay, just log in and you can attend the classes. Fine. Thank you so much. Meet you all again, and I will also come up with more optional classes also. Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I will try to provide you the PDF. Thank you. Thank you.